While I may be considering a number of things, I do know where I land on this. We are now more than a year into the Biden administration. Can you believe it? Because apparently, a lot of conservatives don't. They're still stuck in November of 2020, confused and angry that President Trump lost. And if they're there, well, it's got me wondering who's getting ready for the midterms. Remember the Not My President's Day back in 2017? This was a series of liberal rallies and a few small riots meant to demonstrate the left's disagreement with the then results of the 2016 election. These demonstrations were fueled by party leaders like Nancy Pelosi, who said that there was no question the election had been hijacked. Yes, many on the left were mad and they were out for blood. Republicans at the time scoffed at this, and words like "cry more about it" were often used. And while we certainly saw the left continue to push the narrative of collusion and election fraud for the next 4 years, while doing all this and doing all they could to push the idea, you know what they also did? They started campaigning. They united. They focused heavily on the upcoming 2018 midterms, and they won in many races, enough to take back control of the House of Representatives. Then they went to work again, this time with their state leaders to change rules. They changed laws. They got out the vote, and for the first time in a long time, there actually was a blue wave. It wasn't that big, but it was enough to put Joe Biden in the White House. And while conservatives were too busy crying foul, Democrats gained control of the Senate as well, because the GOP was focused on what had happened instead of a runoff that was happening. And that's a mistake that may haunt us, this country, and even the world for years. In the month after the presidential election, all eyes were on the Georgia Senate race. This was the time for conservatives to come together, because if anything could unite a party, it should have been the chance to hold on to a key branch of government, and in so doing, prevent a possible significant shift to the left. But no. Instead, we had internal political action committees, such as Roger Stone's Committee for American Sovereignty, which instead of spending money to secure Georgia's Senate seats, it instead spent tens of millions of dollars urging GOP voters to write in President Trump's name rather than David Perdue's. And we all know how that turned out. Instead of voting, many conservatives and even independents who may have voted for one of the Republican candidates, they just instead stayed home. Which leads us to where we are now, more than a year later. And instead of talking about the future, many in the GOP are stuck in the past. I see it on social media and television interviews. I hear sound bites in my ads with the loudest among us happy to bask in the limelight of victimhood and anger, which certainly attaches them to the previous administration and as such possibly large donors for their campaigns, but it doesn't push a conservative agenda and vision for the country. Why am I telling you this? Because we need to move on. And while my simply stating this will likely brand me a rhino, I am first an American, and I'm also a conservative. And as a conservative who wants to see conservative principles once again in Washington, I tell you this: we need to rally together now and engage in the future rather than squabbling about the past. Just recently, President Trump labeled leading members of the party as Rhino Lindsey Graham and Wacky Susan Collins, all before going after his former vice president. Why? Why do this? Well, it certainly rallies the base. It doesn't gain one independent or swing voter. It just reminds those folks that why they either voted for the other guy or they just simply didn't vote at all. It's time to move on and stop acting like petulant children who got beat. Yes, we need to ensure election integrity, but you know who gets to do that? Those in power. And right now, conservatives don't have it. Republicans must cast a vision for the future, even if that vision is a return to the policies of the last administration. And while the polls show that many Americans are concerned about election integrity, guess what? Polls don't win elections. Voters do. And talking about the past, that's not going to motivate those that conservatives will need to take back Congress in 2022 or the White House in 2024. Policies of the left over this past year have given conservatives plenty to work with. There's no need to lament about the past. Republicans must keep their eye on the ball. If they don't, they'll certainly miss hitting it out of the park. Finding myself on the right side of things, I'm Seth Denson.